Welcome, everyone, to Awesome Truth, a wrestling book club. I'm your host, Steve Semino, and with me, as always, is my co host, Walt Schwank. Hey, Walters.
Hello, Steven. How's it going?
My friend, it is going very well. It is going as well as it can go, actually, because we have a very special guest on the show today. Another pro wrestler, a legend in the business, and the star, quote unquote, of Netflix's show Wrestlers, which we've talked about on the show. And of course, an ECW legend, which we do get into in a little bit of detail. We have Al Snow on the show today, Walt.
Yeah, it was great to talk to him, talking to him about the new Netflix show, talking to him about OVW in general, and possibly talking about old school ECW circa 1998. I
Possibly
don't
us
know.
fanning out to him and praising him to the heavens for how much we loved his head gimmick.
Possibly us reminiscing about going to the Echelon Mall and 30 years ago and getting two styrofoam heads, one signed by him and one that just sits in my house now.
Do you remember what those heads cost? They were at least $20, right?
Oh, if he was smart, would have been 20. I think they're like
That's
10 each.
that's still
Plus,
that's pure profit. Those cost 1 cent to make, so
yeah, it was a good gimmick. It's good merch.
it was a good gimmick, and Al is a great interview. Let's talk to him right now. We are so excited to have a very special guest on the podcast today. Here to talk about Netflix's Wrestlers is the star of the show, Ohio Valley Wrestling CEO and former ECW, WWE, and TNA superstar, Al Snow. Al, welcome to Awesome Truth.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I don't know so much if I'm the star of the show
Well,
of wrestlers, but I mean, I'll tell everybody that, but I don't know if they'll believe it. So
you're one of the stars for sure, multiple plural. But
yeah,
it's a great show though. Al Wrestler's been on Netflix for a few months now. We love it. We reviewed it for the podcast, and we had nothing but praise for it. And we've watched a
thank
ton of
you.
wrestling documentaries over the course of 165 episodes. So we mean praise when we say it, because we've seen some bad docs along the way, and this is one of those treats out there. What's the response been like on your end, and how does it feel to suddenly wind up back in the pro wrestling spotlight like this?
It's been amazing. That we've really not had everything has been so positive, which I really was pleasantly taken back by. You know what I mean? I mean, it was not that I didn't expect it to be positive, but social media, has a tendency to trend negatively. And I thought for sure we would have some trolls and some haters, but I mean, about the worst that I saw of that was one couple people were like, "Oh, this is so contrived and it's not real. And it's a typical reality show." And I didn't respond because I typically don't, but I just in my head, I'm like, I wish this stuff was not real. As some of the stuff that I was seeing on camera taking place, I was like, what were they thinking? To, these my talent doing certain things. Oh, I'll just do this on camera; it'll be fine. So,
Yeah.
and I was like, please let that have been something they just was contrived and made up. No, it's all real. Unfortunately, watching Haley driving at a high rate of speed down the highway, texting, rolling a joint, and smoking it on camera while driving all at the same time. And I'm like, good Lord, kid, what are you thinking?
She did seem to forget that you would probably be watching that down the line.
Yeah,
you and a million other people out there.
right. Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, one of the surreal moments was watching like the scene of Matt suffering a seizure, and it's like if that's not real, that's the most real fake seizure I've ever seen.
Yeah, I
Ever.
think I don't think I've ever had one, but I don't think I could ever pull one off, faking it
Mhm.
Yeah.
with any degree of believability to that degree, anyways. And he's had, unfortunately, several seizures here in the building. He had that one.
Jeez.
We had seen him, he came in one day to visit, and in our production office, we found him. He had had another one. He had a really bad one around this time last year, during our Christmas show, right before we were literally about to open the doors, we found he had one and passed out and had fallen face first on the concrete in the arena right there by the door. We found him and we had to, call the ambulance and everything to, you know, check him out and make sure he was okay.
That's a
So
lot. And I've heard you say, this is not, people call it reality TV sort of offhand. You're saying this is a documentary. This is, and I think the way they handle something that they handle something like this is very tastefully, very well done, like not salacious, just like this is what's happening while we're filming these people
right,
doing their jobs. And like, I think it was, just spoke to the sort of respectability that it gave to you all, the wrestlers, the crew. Like they were there just documenting what was happening as opposed to shoving the camera right at people's faces and, just to get some hot footage of some, something exciting.
we all had to agree, and I have to give credit to the staff and the employees and the talent. Everyone basically had to agree that they were going to open up their lives 100%, when we were going to do this. Because you can't be half pregnant. I mean, you've got to really either go all the way or not. And, we gave 100% access, both professionally and personally, to the documentary team, to Greg Whiteley and his crew, and and they were here from the last week of May until the end of August, and they filmed 7 days a week, 12 to 16 hours a day, just
Jeez.
everything, So there's so much footage they have that they didn't even use, that of even like you personally, you're like, wow, that they'll definitely use that, that's really cool. And I was not disappointed by what they put together. But then you think back and you're like, oh well, they didn't even use this, well they didn't even use this, well they didn't even use this, well but it was still masterfully done the way they did it.
Yeah, it truly is amazing just to see it all unfold, because you know like Steve mentioned, we've seen a lot of stuff, we watch a lot of stuff with wrestling and in general, and this was very, like, this is well done, and also just explored wrestling in a way that's not typical, like, follow doc. It's very intimate, very personal, and you know like someone like yourself has been through this process before, where you're filming a show about wrestling, it's behind the scenes, Tough Enough, I know it's different, but you kind of,
Not
I
really, it
imagine.
wasn't, because
Okay.
Tough Enough was done we were literally the first reality show of that nature, where because prior to that there was only Survivor, and prior to that was the Real World. So we were the very first show where they kind of combined Survivor and the Real World together, and that we were, and that's what kicked off America's Next Top Model. All of those
Yeah.
other reality shows followed um, that format that we kind of were the first ones to do. And it was kind of similar to a documentary in a way, because this was long before they had realized, hey, wait a minute, we can kind of make this stuff up as we go along, and we can kind of script it. So they literally just turned the cameras on us, and filmed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, that was when we did Tough Enough, that was it. They would give us, or give the kids, they would take them on, take them to restaurants, they take them to clubs, they would take them out on nights on the town to see if things would happen. But they never directly told anyone, hey, we're going to do this, you need to act this way, you need to respond this way. None of that. It was literally just, there's the camera, and it was on you all the time.
So having had that experience with Tough Enough, and having multiple seasons of that, there's a level of expectation I'm sure someone like yourself has when Netflix comes to you and says, hey, we're going to do the same thing, but with OVW. And I guess my question for you is that something that when Netflix approaches you, you're like, wow, what an amazing opportunity, like bring it all in? Or is there a level of, oh boy, like, all right, like, let's do this again. But there's obvious, like, angst or pitfalls, or just frustrations with another crew kind of being there in what's already a chaotic backstage scene.
Well, having the crew here, I didn't worry about that. There was a little bit of, I was a little bit resistant, I guess, to a point, because here's the analogy I always give, because everybody, now we all want to know what behind the scenes. We all want to know backstage. Trust me, backstage sucks. I mean, it's not that exciting. It's like when you watch The Wizard of Oz. Yeah, the movie starts out and it's all black and white, and then all of a sudden it becomes color. Everything's possible. Everything's magical, and then you pull the curtain back, and it's a little old man turning dials, twisting knobs, pushing buttons, and it goes back to black and white because now all the magic's gone. Now you know how it's done. And my concern, being a little bit reticent about it, was that I knew that they were going to pull the curtain back, obviously, but I didn't want to pull it back so far that it kills the magic for the audience. I think enough people in wrestling do that these days. In fact, I know they do. And, that seems to be the big popular trend, is to, we got to tell you everything that's going on. It's like, no, you don't. And I really don't want to know. I'd like to be able to, I know, and this might be a news flash, but everybody's known, at least in the United States since the 1940s, that, wrestling is predetermined. If you haven't figured that out yet, Murder, She Wrote, then, and put the clues together, then you've got more issues than just knowing that wrestling's not real. But, the real ins and outs, and really pulling that back to where you just see the little old man, me, pushing buttons and twisting knobs, I think it kind of ruins it a little bit. But I had to trust Greg Whiteley enough, and I thought that trust was well placed, because I think he pulled enough of the curtain back, but not so much that it took a lot of the magic out of it. It only enhanced it, I think.
That reminds me of something you said on the show, Al, where you go to Ric Flair's last match, and you're sort of relishing in the idea that they're booing, that the fans are responding, in the way the wrestling audiences are supposed to respond, which is bad guys are bad, good guys are good. You show up and cheer the good guys, and I can tell that's your sort of old school mentality, for lack of a better term, coming out. Just like, I wish people, and honestly, as I think Walt and I would agree, we're over the postmodern era of let's dissect every element of what makes sometimes it's so much fun to just sit back and just enjoy the wrestling the way it's sort of put together for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what made you a fan in the first place, was just, it was fun, and then, granted, and I appreciate the, fans' passion to want to know more, but you get to a point where familiarity breeds contempt, and the more familiar you become, the more contemptuous you become of it. Now it's not as much fun, because now you're analyzing and second guessing and questioning and assuming that you have the same amount of knowledge as the person behind the scenes who's actually doing it, and you don't. You have information, but you really don't have knowledge. Hey, tell them in the background, hi. Somebody just walked behind you. They don't really have real knowledge, because they don't have a commensurate amount of actual experience, and these days there are so many pseudo experts, who write, newsletter. I think we know who all those people are, the newsletters and such, and granted, they are very well informed, but they have no real, actual, genuine experience in the topic they're talking about. That's no different than, a very passionate NFL football player, fan, getting upset and mad and angry at the team that he cheers on. Oh, there she goes again. It was like a ghost. It just kind of floated in, floated out. And to the point where they get so upset, that they don't want to follow the team anymore. They're mad at the coach, and it's like, wait a minute, you've never played on that level, and you've never, you got mad because they lost the Super Bowl. When's the last Super Bowl you were even playing in? You know what I mean? So you gotta be aware that you're still a fan. There's nothing wrong with just being a fan. That's what, I'm still a fan. And, and I definitely intently make an effort to always watch all of it as if I'm still just a fan. Like I don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? I just analyze it as a fan, just a casual fan would go, and that I hope it keeps an insight as far as keeping me connected to the audience because I'm still just a part of the audience. Even though I've been inside the business for 41 years, I still watch it as if I really still like to watch it as if I'm still just 16 and on a Saturday night in WTBS at 6:05, Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Is that desire to, watch it in that direction? Is that part of why you wanted to take over at OVW and why that attracted you? Because it is sort of a, based on your budget limitations and just the whole idea of, I imagine, a regional promotion, you sort of have to go back to basics, and maybe not, the bells and whistles are certainly a little less. You have to get down and dirty. You have to just do the work and establish a foundation. Like, was that what drew you to being the booker and the owner of a smaller promotion?
No, I think I had a momentary loss of sanity.
Well, that
I was
too.
like, I think life's a little too boring. I'm enjoying it too much. You know what I need? I need a lot of stress and a lot of aggravation dealing with talent every single day. So why not buy a wrestling company? It'd be fun, they said. No, that was certainly not the case. How this came about is I was at the time I was still going around and working some independent shows and things like that, and I was getting very frustrated because I would look around the locker room and a majority of the talent that were in the locker room, and I'm not talking about just aesthetically and cosmetically. Granted, this business, I'm not, if you don't realize it by now, is a very aesthetic, cosmetic business. I mean, it just is. You know, you don't need to be a bodybuilder, but you need to, when you walk through the curtain, give the impression that you make a living in a professional combat competitive situation. You need to look like you can kick somebody's ass, period. You got to look the part. But what made it more frustrating was seeing a lot of young talent that weren't in the proper athletic condition to perform safely and responsibly in the ring. And that was getting very frustrating to me because there are no standards as far as training is concerned anymore. And having a conversation with my wife, who's a licensed masseuse, got me even more frustrated because I realized to be a licensed masseuse or really any licensed occupation in the United States, whether it be a hairdresser or a barber or even a mortician, you've got to go to a state accredited school, be taught by a state accredited and approved teacher. You've got to complete a number of state required hours, then a certain amount of residency, hands-on experience, supervised experience, before you can even take a test to get your license. In any commissioned state in the country, you want to be a wrestler, you want to be a professional wrestler, an occupation, a licensed occupation. Hey, you know what you do? Just maybe take a physical, pay your money, and alakazam, you're a wrestler. That's it. And that's insulting to me. And then looking around in the locker room of a lot of these independent shows and seeing a lot of talent that they weren't in proper athletic condition. And then a young man, this was like about the fourth or fifth of these I've heard of in recent history. A young man in Oklahoma was wrestling. There goes the ghost again. Was wrestling on a show. Poorly trained, not trained very much at all. And, had a head injury, was in a coma for about a week and a half, and they had to pull the plug, and the young man died. And I thought, that's it. So I took up a crusade and approached the commission in Maryland, and I approached Oklahoma, Louisiana, and then I went to the actual board of directors meeting for the Boxing Wrestling Commission to propose a training license and a certain standardized amount of hours that a person has to train before they're allowed to take a test, and then take a test, a physical, test to determine that they are athletically in enough condition to get a license. I didn't think that was unreasonable. I got turned down everywhere. And at the time when that was where I met my initial partner, Chad Miller, who was the executive director of the Kentucky Boxing Wrestling Commission. And then, I was kind of in and out here in OVW, kind of hanging out, trying to, occasionally give advice and things. And Danny Davis, the founder and owner at the time of OVW, it was, talking about he wanted to retire, jokingly, like, hey, would you be interested in buying a wrestling company? I was like, hell no. And then he sprung that question up when Chad, who's a very motivated guy, very successful entrepreneur, and Chad's also very much about athletics and helping to develop young talent. And, he's like, hey, here's a chance, where we could actually make a difference by creating, raising the standards of training and teaching and, providing a pathway for younger talent to lead to success. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So, we, Chad, myself, and Joe Reeves initially bought the company, and then, we went from there. So that was how I kind of got drawn into owning a wrestling company.
Yeah, I mean, just looking back on your career and the places you've been and the things you've done, I mean, I think the logical next step to the outside objective observer would be like to be head booker, owner, promoter, because you have, I mean, it's been well documented that you were the face of Tough Enough, and back when wrestling training wasn't even a thing that the public knew about. Obviously,
Right.
You spent a lot of time as in-ring talent and producing backstage at TNA, and so I think you have a nice 360 look at the whole business. But I guess I'm curious, taking the leap from all the three things I just mentioned to then owning and being head booker, like what is that process like from your perspective, just taking that leap, and like what are some of the influences? Like you mentioned that you look at things as a fan, but you also were intimately in certain region, like ECW is one that comes to mind, working with what people consider one of the best bookers and Paul Heyman, working with Vince McMahon. I mean, I don't have to cite how his accolades as a promoter, booker. And I'm just curious, like what do you draw influence from and from your career, and how did that help prepare you for this next big step in your career?
Well, I draw from all of it. I mean, I really do. I even draw from, when I was very lucky that the guy who broke me into the business, Jim Lancaster, a lot of times when we would be on car rides, traveling from town to town to stay awake, he would say, okay, we're going to book a territory. And, the objective was, it wasn't, just, you can play fantasy booker. It was, you can take whatever talent and, you're going to first, you're going to book out a 6-month run, and you're going to, what's your blow off show? Where's it you want to go? What's your main event? What's the undercard? And then you had to explain, why are you putting these 2 people in the main event? How are you going to get there? What are you going to do to build the heat? How are you going to pay it off? Why are you putting this guy in my main event? Why are you, and how are you going to go, and what are you going to do to get there? And you had to explain everything. How long is the show going to be? You know, are you only going to do 7 matches? Are you doing 10 matches? If you're doing 10, why are you doing 10? What are you hoping to get by doing 10 instead of 7? The added expense. What are you going to do? What's that going to do for the audience? How tired is it going to make them? You know, are you going to have shorter matches on the undercard so that will justify when you're going to have more matches as a whole, as the card as a whole? Um, you know, you had to answer all of those questions. You couldn't just say, "Well, that'd be cool." You always had to, you had to have an explanation, an in-depth explanation and understanding of what it was you were wanting to do and how you were going to achieve it. And that helped me also approach when I would work in the ring, you know, and has helped me immensely. You know, when I was first here in the early 2000s as the, you know, head trainer for WWE's developmental, well, I kind of became ipso facto the guy that wrote and booked all the TV and all the house shows, and, you know, booking the talent. And I, you know, used those same lessons to do it back then. And then when I was an executive with Impact Wrestling, and Bruce Pritchard and I worked together to get Impact's developmental program set up and running, and partnered with OVW because it was literally made sense. It was 2 hours down the road to Nashville. You know, I came back and was the guy who booked and wrote all of the TV and the house shows again, booked the talent. So, and I used those same lessons that time as well. And I used those lessons when I was being a producer, you know, a segment producer or agent at Impact, you know, in assisting the talent and helping them put together their match so that it would do the business that the writing team was trying to conduct for that particular story. So that really has helped. And then being in the business and being, you know, being around and always asking questions, and, you know, as far as production is concerned, and promotion, and, you know, I've had, like I tell people all the time, I'm not by any means, I am definitely probably not, I can say without a doubt, not the smartest guy in the room. I'm probably not the most well versed as far as wrestling in the room, but I am probably one of the more experienced guys in the room, because I'm one of the few that are still around that started in the territories and have literally been through every step of evolution up until the present day, both being an in-ring performer, a commentator, a television host, a you know, reality series host, you know, you name it, an executive, a producer, you know, ring announcer.
You can keep going all day.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
You know, there really hasn't been much that I haven't done as far as a dog and pony show with professional wrestling. Now I've wrestled a bear, so, you know.
Is that true? There really was a bear?
Yeah. Never want to repeat that again. But
No, I wouldn't think so.
Tracy Smothers wrestled a bear too once, so, you know, that was a thing for a while.
I believe that.
Well, I will say, Alan, not to blow smoke, but I really do think one of the things that make wrestlers so great is this comes across, you know, like it's, you know, like we said, it's very professionally done as a show. It's slick, it's well edited, it's well put together, but like there's an air of legitimacy around you that I think is really comes across as someone who like understands this business, how hard it is, how unique it is, and how to sort of, you know, put a show on every night, which is one of the hardest parts of it, is just getting the gears all to run together at the same time in the same direction. And I think that's one of the things. I think, you know, you pop another person in there with less knowledge, just less entertaining too. Like it's just, there's just something about it. Again, not to praise you to the heavens, but there's something about you that really sort of comes across, I think, as a wise man who
keep going, just keep going. I don't mind.
Just
this doesn't happen. This may be a surprise, but this doesn't happen very often.
There's a secret sauce. I don't know. I don't know if you even know what it is necessarily, but there's something about you up there that I think is riveting and encouraging at the same time. So,
well, I feel like I've been riveted a couple times, but thank you. Very kind words.
Sure, of course. And so, as we're wrapping up here, I just want to say this. I think Walt and I'd be remiss to not mention this. We grew up in New Jersey, and we were about 13 years old in 1998, and that's when Living Dangerously took place at
Oh
Asbury
yeah,
Park. And
yeah.
I think Walt and I would both agree that one of the formative wrestling fan moments of our lives is seeing Lance Storm say, "I'm going to give you head." And then
Oh
you come
yeah,
out, and the heads are all in the crowd, and you
yeah.
snowplow Shane. That's just was. I don't like at that moment. I think to Walt and I, you were the biggest star in the business. You know, you were just you were this light, just it was so cool. I mean, Breathe is one of the best theme songs ever that
Yeah.
works so perfectly. Like, what was that like for you? Like, what did you feel like? I
Uh,
know it was ECW, it was the third promotion, it wasn't the biggest leagues, but I
it
mean,
doesn't matter.
but it must have, did it feel the same way? Were you like, I'm on to something here and this is
Oh,
truly
always,
special?
always, always. I mean, I have this conversation. A lot of times everybody comes up and they go, "What was the greatest moment? What was your favorite match?" The all these particular moments, and Mick Foley, who drives me nuts. We had an argument one time. What a shock that he and I argue. Um, because I answer it sincerely. Okay. Like you were saying, well, it wasn't, it was the third largest. It wasn't, the big two at the time. Who cares? It was an incredible moment. And like everybody goes, what's your favorite match? All of them. Like I have been so blessed to get to do what I've loved to do for as long as I've gotten to do it. You know, every time I go to the ring, I don't care. I don't care. Honestly, six people in an audience in a well-lit building offers me an immense amount of a challenge compared to 66,000 in a half-lit arena. 66,000 people is easy to elicit a response, to get a reaction, to make an emotional connection, because it's the psychology of anonymity. The more anonymous I can make an audience, the easier they are to manipulate, to elicit an emotional reaction. The more that your neighbor can see you respond and react, the more self conscious you are, the more difficult it is. I've loved every single time I've gotten to do this. I don't care what size or what platform or how many people. That's irrelevant. It's important. Like on that night, it was important because I was the thing that brought all that to the building, and I was the thing that helped create that experience. And that was what made it special and what mattered to me. Doesn't matter if it was, it was what. Everybody, well, it has to be WWE or it has to be WrestleMania or you had to wrestle this one particular guy or no, I don't. I just love to do this, and I've gotten so, like I said, blessed to do it as long as I've gotten to do it, and I'm still blessed because I still get to be a part of it, more from a view, a viewer. Now I get to live vicariously through the young talent, here in OVW and watch. There's nothing more rewarding than, like that moment that we created with Maria and Haley when my whole objective, and I literally told them from the start, I said, if we do this right, if you guys do what I ask you to do the way I ask you to do it, we'll make them cry. you know. There were people crying in that audience when they came back together, and I was like, "Yes, cry for me, give me your tears." Ooh. And that's the magic of professional wrestling. It's like no other art form in that it is the art of physical storytelling within the context of a competitive situation to elicit a moment every time. Like if I'm going to wrestle a match, my whole thought process is just to that moment at the end, that moment that I can make as big and as strong and last as long as possible for you. And the thing is, unlike movies and TV shows, and that only exists in that moment. Only that night did those people that were in this building get to experience that moment, that emotion of Maria and Haley coming back together that overwhelmed them and made them cry. You know what I mean? And that does it. That can be. You can watch it again on video 1,000 times, and it'll never exist the way it did in that one moment. And for me to be able to, sometimes I tell stories that go for a year. I've had a couple, year and a half, all to get to one moment, and and to watch it play out week after week after week after week until you get to that one singular magical moment that will connect an audience emotionally and will never forget it. You know, that's the thing I still get to love to do. You know, and I get to experience it, and I get to experience it without having to go out there and beat the crap out of my body to do it now. I just get to watch everybody else beat the crap out of theirs. So,
well, you have two lifelong fans of Al Snow, thanks
thank
to
you.
the things you did 25 years ago. As evident as the styrofoam heads I still have housed at my parents' house in New Jersey. That was a nice reminder this past weekend. And now there's a new generation, hopefully, of fans of you, of OVW, and we're excited to see more people become fans of you and your work, and all the work happening at OVW. And so, would love to. Is there anything you want to plug? Any upcoming OVW shows? Anything in general with the promotion?
Well, we're live every Thursday night on Fight TV, and also now on YouTube and on Facebook. We're going to go live on Twitter as well, so you can access us nationally. We're also live, regionally, locally. And WBNA is our broadcast partner here. We have several broadcast partners around the state. And we're in about 100 million homes from Canada down to Puerto Rico, Guam, Virgin Islands, and Bahamas on a myriad of different smaller national networks, but they all reach a combination of about 100 million homes. But the YouTube platform and the Facebook and Fight TV are probably the easiest to access. And we're outside of WWE and AEW. We're the only other company that does live television every single week. And we're on episode, I think, 1268 or something this week. So Raw's the only other show in the history of television to have more episodic television than us. We're one episode ahead of SmackDown. So, which take that, Vince. So I would love to encourage everybody to check it out. And it's 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. If they want more information, they can go to ovwrestling.com. If they want to get information about the Academy, they go to ovwacademy.com. We are the only certified by the state office proprietary education as a actual trade school for professional wrestling, sports entertainment, and broadcasting in the world. And I'm very proud of that. We're having our pay-per-view Christmas Chaos on December 16th. I believe we're going to do that on YouTube on pay-per-view, so they can go to OB Wrestling and buy the link to watch the pay-per-view there if they want. And you can follow me at The Real Al Snow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. There have been some fake Al Snows. And if anyone out there fakes being me, I'm not going to get upset. I'll just message you and be like, come on, aim the bar higher. I mean, really. If I'm going to fake being a celebrity, I'm not going to, let's do Al Snow. That'll really make it impress people. It doesn't. I'm Al Snow, and it doesn't do anything for me. So.
Well, there you go. Consume OVW in all those ways. And if you want a primer on Al and OVW, Netflix's Wrestlers is out as well. And it's a great, great watch. Al, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it a ton.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it.
So there you have it. Al Snow, folks. Amazing to talk to him. We love him a ton, as you heard. And he deserves it. I think this little renaissance and resurgence he's having thanks to Wrestlers is well earned, and really a great cap on a wonderful career. Maybe not a cap, let's not call it a cap, but it's a great little reminder that Al Snow is as good as he's cracked up to be. He's done so many things, as you noted in the episode. He's a legend for good reason.
Yeah, and now he's sitting in the coveted, I don't know if it's coveted, but the grill position now for OVW, and transitioning to the next phase of his career, and we're excited to see what he does with OVW, and who knows, maybe we'll see him in potentially other promotions running the show one day. I mean,
Who knows? Or Wrestler Season 2. I will see if there's more room in the world for more wrestlers. But as we said many times over, it's a great show. We're done watching it now, and we both really enjoyed it. So if you haven't gotten into that yet, go watch it and then hunt down OVW if you like it a ton and you want more. Because as Al said, there's a ton of ways to find them as well, all over the internet, all over TV, and all that good stuff. And of course, if you want more Awesome Truth, our episode on wrestlers and a bunch of other interviews with literal wrestlers that we've done over the course of 165 episodes, you can find all those at awesometruth.libsyn.com. You can also subscribe to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere podcasts are delivered. We are there. Walt, great to talk, Al. Great to praise him, and great to add another wonderful wrestler to the list of great guys that we've talked to.
Wrestling podcast talking to a wrestler about wrestlers.
It is very, when you say it that way and you're not capitalizing the W in the show, it is very, very confusing.
Yeah, maybe that's the title. I don't know. We're spitballing.
We'll bat that around. Thank you all so much for listening, and remember, the truth will set you free.